Welcome to the Ignorance is No Excuse podcast. Please light your candles now. For the fallen. They went with songs to the battle. They were young, straight of limb, true of eye, steady and aglow. They were staunch to the end against odds uncounted. They fell with their faces to the foe. They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. Jonathan Farrell was killed asking for help. His car broke down, so he went to a neighborhood and knocked on doors for help. He ran towards police for help, and they opened fire, shooting him 12 times. He was a football player for the Florida A&M University Rattlers. Alton Sterling, killed for selling CDs and exercising his Second Amendment right. Officers tasered him, forced him to the hood of a sedan, then to the floor, and shot him 6 times while he was underneath them. He was known as the CD Man. Corinne Gaines, killed attempting to protect her child. Jamar Clark, killed for wanting to talk to his girlfriend. He had attempted to enter the ambulance she was in, and officers arrested him on the ground, and he was shot. He had hopes of attending college. Chantel Davis was killed by running a red light. She crashed her car, struggled for control of the vehicle with an officer, and he shot her in the chest. She bled out profusely on the pavement as she begged not to die. Chantel was in the midst of getting her GED. Jewel Dexter was killed for pulling up his pants and drinking in public. Jules pleaded to have permission to pull up his pants, and an officer fired 4 shots into his head and back, killing him. He was schizophrenic. Alejandro Vargas Martinez was killed while walking to school. Mariel Franco was killed for speaking out against her country's injustices. Tamir Rice was killed playing with a fake gun. He reached for his waistband and was shot twice. The entire incident happened within 2 seconds. Trayvon Martin was killed due to looking suspicious. Trayvon had come back from buying Skittles and a watermelon in Arizona when a volunteer neighborhood watch person shot Trayvon. Freddie Carlos Gray was killed for carrying a knife. Officer had placed him in a van, giving him a rough ride where they drive erratically while the detained has no seatbelt. They broke his legs and put him in a coma. He died from his spinal injuries. Jordan Edwards was killed for being at a party. An officer fired 3 rounds into a vehicle, shooting him in the head. Samuel DuBose was killed for not having his driver's license on him. An officer opened his driver door, ordered him to unbuckle his seatbelt, and Samuel closed it, driving off. An officer shot him in the head. His car collided with a telephone pole. Breonna Taylor, killed in her bedroom. A no-knock warrant was issued, and the officers entered forcibly into her home. She was shot 8 times. Her boyfriend defended their home with his firearm as they believed someone broke in. Keith Childress was killed for carrying a cell phone. Julio Pedro Matos Pinto, killed playing in his front yard, was hit in the stomach during an operation conducted by the federal police in Brazil. Megan Marie Hockaday was killed defending her home. An officer fired 20 seconds after they entered the home. She leaves behind 3 children. Tatiana Hargrove was assaulted by police and attacked by a police dog. She was mistaken for a male suspect. She was 19 at the time. Stephon Clark was killed carrying an iPhone, shot 8 times by police. 6 were found in his back, in the back of his grandmother's home. Officers believed an object was being pointed at them. Amadou Diallo was killed due to racial profiling. He reached for his wallet, and the plainclothes officers started firing. He was shot 19 times. Terrence Sterling was killed for accidentally crashing into a cruiser. An officer in the passenger seat shot Terrence twice, once in the neck and once in the back. Maria Johnson and Brandy Coleman were killed for being trans women. The women were shot and left in the back of a Jeep. They were burned in. They were left burned beyond recognition. Henry Glover was killed for walking through a mall parking lot after Hurricane Katrina. He was shot, handcuffed, beat by police along with William Tanner, and bled to death in his car. An officer took the vehicle, set it on fire a mile away. James Brissett, Ronald Madison, killed looking for food and supplies after Katrina. Officers opened fire on the family with an AK-47. James was killed and Ronald was shot 7 times, 5 in his back. An officer stomped on Ronald's back before he died. Jeremy Bam Bam McDowell was killed exercising his Second Amendment rights. Officers were called because Jeremy had suffered from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. He struggled to put his hands up in his wheelchair, and shots were fired, killing him. Leilene Polanco was killed because she could not afford bail. She was arrested on minor assault charges, sent to Rikers Island. 2 months later, she was found dead in her cell. She suffered from seizures. Sandra Bland was killed for not using her turn signal during a traffic stop. She was forced out of her car, tasered, had her head slammed into the ground, and feared her arm was broken. She was found hanging in her cell. Tony McDade was killed for defending themselves. Several men attacked him earlier in the day, so he went to get revenge and was shot by police after he pointed a BB gun. Botham Jean was killed for eating ice cream and watching football. I'm going to repeat that. Botham Jean was killed for eating ice cream and watching football. An officer went into Botham's apartment as her own and shot him. Willie McCoy was killed for falling asleep in a Taco Bell drive-thru with a gun in his lap. Taisha Miller was killed for being comatose and having a gun in her lap. When she awoke, the officers attempted to grab the gun and shot her 12 times. Mike Brown was 18, just a few days away from starting college when he was shot 6 times. He put his hands in the air. He started to get down, but the officer still approached with his weapon drawn. He fired several more shots. Malaysia Booker was killed for accidentally backing into a car. The driver of the car held her at gunpoint when a crowd gathered and they started to assault her. Malaysia was found dead near a golf course. Betty Jones was killed for directing officers to a suspect and negligent officers. She had been standing behind a suspect holding a baseball bat when the officer shot at the suspect, accidentally shot Betty. Terrence Crutcher was killed for needing help with his vehicle. He kept asking for help. The officers tased him and shot him. Walter Lamar Scott was killed for a non-functioning third brake light. He ran from the officer on foot and was tasered and shot 8 times from behind, handcuffed, face down on the ground, dead. George was murdered, and I believe it was premeditated. I believe they killed that man intentionally. That was not police work. What I saw in that video was not police work. That was murder. That was premeditated murder. Disgusting. Awful. Shocking. There are no words to describe what I saw in that video. And all these videos and all these stories. They're horrible. I went to the protest today in Bayonne. And it was very moving, very emotional, very powerful. It was nonviolent. There were no paid agitators there trying to sneak their way in to mess things up for everybody, because that's what's happening. We have government agents coming to start these problems. And that's not what we saw in Bayonne today. Today in Bayonne, we saw people come together as one. All different colors coming together as one to try to fix this problem. When we were all kneeling for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, I actually heard black women crying. I normally don't hear white people crying during protests, but why do black people cry during protests? Because of the last 400 years that they've been oppressed, that their mothers and fathers and grandmothers and grandfathers and forefathers and foremothers, their ancestors have all been victims of this. The only thing that's different now is it's being filmed. This has all been happening for hundreds of years. A lot worse things. As horrible as these things are, it was worse. And it's just awful. We all have to get together and fight this. This is a spiritual war. You're on this earth for 80 years, and it's a spiritual war. You're here for a test. This is to test you. God is here to test you because we have a struggle, not against blood and flesh, but against the governments, against the authorities, against the world rulers of this darkness, against the wicked spirit forces on high places. These are evil, godless people. It's an evil, godless system. You cannot serve 2 gods. You cannot serve money, power, and corruption and serve God at the same time. These are evil people. Now, this is generally a medical cannabis podcast, and this is supposed to be a candlelight vigil for the fallen. So we're combining all of our issues today because there's a lot of suffering. A lot of people have died. A lot of people are hurting. A lot of people looking for answers. And a lot of people are going to light candles tonight. in remembrance of the fallen. So light your candle up. This is a different kind of show. It's going to be on for another few minutes. We're going to finish out the night with this. I'm going to call Jim Miller, and we're going to go through the patients that are on our list. When we were all kneeling today at the park, and I felt the Spirit of God. I really did. It was powerful. It was beautiful. Jim Miller?
Hello.
You're on the air, Jim Miller.
Say, good show so far. Man, I'm proud of you.
Thank you. This is a very important show that we're doing today. We're going to go through our list today. And Jim, I have Cheryl Miller up right now. Why are we doing this list today, and why are we talking about Cheryl today?
We're talking about Farrell today because primarily this particular day today, June 7th, she passed away on June 7th, 17 years ago. And we're talking about her today because she started advocating for medical marijuana in New Jersey and nationally in 1991. Even though she knew that because of her critical health, she would not live to see it happen in her lifetime. But she envisioned that it would happen. And I don't know if anybody can picture this. I really don't, because I've thought about it a lot today. I do that this day every year. I want to be close to the realities of it. And the reality is the bandwagon's been here for a long time, and patients still can't afford their medicine. They're still dying in needless discomfort. They're dying needlessly early, and sometimes not needing to die at all, but they do because they don't have the medicine that can help them. Now, once you know this, you want to do something about it. And I'm watching all that's going on today in the last 2 weeks for something that's been going on 400 years, like you said, and I'm seeing parallels, all except sick people like Cheryl couldn't march. But wait, Cheryl led a parade down Fifth Avenue in New York in 1997, her first foray into medical marijuana outside the state, the Cures Not Wars March. And there was only one other medical marijuana patient there, and she was legal, Alvin Musica. Even there were not medical marijuana patients marching for cannabis rights. They weren't able to. So the idea that we did not know one other openly public medical marijuana patient, and I call it marijuana right now, I'll be calling it cannabis when I leave the 90s. But back in the 90s, it was medical marijuana, and there was no other patients willing to come forward till 1999 to be public about it in New Jersey. What would you do when you know something so serious that could affect so many people, in her case with multiple sclerosis? What do you do with this secret? It shouldn't be a secret. And the more we delved into it, the more ridiculous it became. It became appalling. It became unbelievable. And we have nobody to do this with. We didn't have anybody to march with. We didn't have anybody to even coalesce with till 1999. But I'd like to, while it's on my mind, make a quick diversion, something I wanted to say, actually talk about before, Cheryl. Another patient, not patient, actually, an advocate for medical cannabis and other things, who is on our list, we'll be reading, William Buckman. William Buckman is the segue between what you were talking about and what we're about to talk about. In November, for people who don't know William Buckman, I just want to read something I pulled off the quickly describes him and why he is the segue to what we're talking about. In November 1994, a still unknown criminal defense lawyer, William Buckman, went before a judge in Gloucester County and on behalf of a man facing drug charges, took one of the New Jersey's most powerful institutions, state police. He took them on. He, quote from court, he said to the judge, "We are making an allegation that something is horribly wrong on the New Jersey Turnpike." When he was 40, he told the judge that. He said Black and Latino motorists were being targeted by troopers solely because of their race, and he said he could prove it. Yes, he did. It took tears. He almost lost his practice. What we have here is a Jewish man standing up for Black and Latinos, and because their lives matter more than just whether they live or die, it matter in between, too, you know? They matter every day for so many other things besides whether you live or die. And Bill Buckman knew that, and I am so proud of him, and I still miss him. So I just wanted to say that really quick while we start off with Cheryl. I'm looking at a picture of Cheryl now. There she is with Jackie Rickert, the first patient she known, not from Jersey. This is when she still didn't know anybody in New Jersey. That's Asa Hutchinson. And I don't know if he was quite the head of the DEA then. He was a congressman, and he became the head of the DEA. And the DEA is who closed the program nationally that gave 300 marijuana joints to people like L.V. Musica, who is one of Cheryl's close friends. Only 3 people now get that nationally, legal marijuana. And there he is, smiling. And Cheryl's smiling because he's smiling, and because I had just said to him that I was amazed that he could still smile like that with everything Cheryl was saying, and he said, well, you can learn something from everybody. That was before that, by the way, Cheryl with Gary Johnson, then governor of New Mexico. This is an amazing picture here to me. Cheryl laying in bed in our room. Oh, gosh. Let's see, on a day of remembrance, let's look at the woman standing on the left, Sharon McCullough, passed away. She's not with us. Eddie Smith, white shirt, standing in the back, not with us. Jackie Rickert, leaning on Cheryl's bed, not with us. Cheryl, not with us. That's LV in the squatting down on the left, LV Musica. She's still alive with us, and she is a pip. I got to tell you, man. I love her.
Yeah, me too.
She's still fighting. That's Brian McCullough, Cher's widower. Gary Stork, top left, my friend from Wisconsin. Gary Sage, looks like Curly from the Three Stooges a little. You know, he says that. Yeah. There he is. That was in 2000 because Cheryl really, and me, but Cheryl didn't like at the time presidential candidate Al Gore said that there's other things that work just as well as cannabis, and that's from the experts whose opinion he trusts. But he refused to tell us who the experts were. So I borrowed $6,000 and got Eddie Smith from Kentucky, and Cher and Brian McCullough from Kentucky, and Elvie from Florida, and Gary and Jackie from Wisconsin to come to New Jersey to tell Al Gore otherwise. And Elvie was our legal smoker, so she could smoke while giving interviews. It was pretty cool. Also, she was our cover at the after party. These people... Eddie Smith was dying of 2 diseases. The reason he came is I got in touch with him because he went to Al Gore's Texas headquarters for his campaign and lit up a joint in the office, and with others. But he lit up a joint. There's about 6 people there, and called security. And when security said to him, the guy said, can't you just do this somewhere else? And what he said was so profound. He said, if not here, where? I mean, there was nowhere safer. And that was where the point was to be made. So he got to finish his joint, and I thought, you got to come and do that again in New Jersey at an Al Gore thing. So he died shortly after. It was a race between AIDS and cancer, and cancer won, and he lost. I'm looking at heroes here. I'm looking at people that knew, a few of them, that this was going to outlast them. And I don't know. I see so many. I see hope, actually, for what's going on now with people with the Black Lives Matter. Have you noticed? It's not just, it's a multiracial, multicultural event. I rode by a demonstration today. Actually rode right to where you'd have to stop and watch it. It was awesome. Because I was kind of hoping one day it wouldn't be just patients fighting for themselves. That when they gather, there'll be way more healthy people there. People who it doesn't directly concern. Because I see a lot of people with probably grew up with white privilege out protesting now. And this is going to be some serious change coming up. But here in New Jersey, patients are dying because they can't afford their medicine. And we read that list at the end of every podcast you and I have done. It's after the first year. And the list gets longer. How do we get to the finish line so I can stop being an advocate? It's all about me for a second. I want to stop. I'm not tireless. I'm tired. I'm really tired. I'm going to be 68. I'm getting old. I don't know if I'm tired because I'm older. I'm tired from doing stuff. I'm just getting tired. And I can't stop until cannabis patients in New Jersey have the right to grow their own medicine. I cannot stop until then. And the reason I can't stop until then is because what I know about Cheryl, how that worked, the importance of it, I know because when she didn't have it, what her life was like. Not when it was being better, I knew that she didn't have to be like that. And I couldn't grow for her. I couldn't risk being separated from her. She would not survive. Nor would I, probably. So we couldn't do anything but advocate. And she lost her two front teeth because she had a spasm while I was making her bed and rolled off the edge of the bed because I couldn't afford to buy it. There was never going to be any homegrown. Oh my God, it was 1991 when that happened, for crying out loud. But it wouldn't have happened if I could have grown for her. And don't think that's not happening now because other people can't grow for who they love, who are still with them to be helped. Not about Cheryl. And for her, it never was about her. When we found out this worked in 1990, you cannot believe how thrilled I was. We tried everything. She never recreationally smoked, and that just meant more for me for our time together. So we're cool with that. How ironic that for 7 years we were married and didn't know. And she went downhill fast. So now I need homegrow to happen in New Jersey so I can step back. And that's it. That's my bucket list. That everything I need to do in my life, that's it. And it seems that the one thing Cheryl didn't envision correctly was she thought, and she knew this would take longer than her time, she thought that over the years, if I stayed with it, that I would become a resource for people. I had experience. She watched I did nothing but establish what the playing field was and find our strong suit and hammer. We were a force. With Gary, Stork, and Jackie, by the way, you're also looking at the Commando Squad. One of High Times Freedom Fighter much more for being people who shouldn't be showing up but did at going all the way. So anyway, homegrown can happen. Cheryl thought that it would be like my experience would count, and it doesn't seem like it does. I don't know if it doesn't translate or I've become the old guy and everybody got a new way to do something. I don't know what it is, but it doesn't have to be. We need to speak with one voice. Along with Joanne Zito, we have the LetPatientsGrowNewJersey.com and Let Patients Grow New Jersey Facebook page. And there are people on the list we're going to be talking about who they're going to die without home grow. They're going to die because healthy people are not stepping up. Oh my God, Sabina Rose. Yeah, one of the moving forces and the reason that New Jersey became the first state in the union to have cannabis allowed on school grounds because of the large school thing. And although it was Sabina Rose, her untimely passing at I believe was 15 months after a 24-hour seizure from Dravet syndrome, epilepsy. Oh my God, who can't look at that face and know that that child should have had every advantage, and their parents should have had every advantage? Yeah, that's sad. I got to confess, Lefty, I'm going to tell people, we very much agree at the end of every podcast we did, it was our job to make people feel like shit, that we would read these ode to remembrance, and we wanted to make people feel as bad as possible because fear is a motivator, anger is a motivator, but feeling like crap about things like that, like Sabina, about Cheryl, about how many others on that list, and the list grows longer. And it doesn't have to be. And I got to say, I don't think patients are getting help they deserve. And sometimes I don't know why more aren't speaking up without leaving their homes. Have they lost hope? I don't know. But they need change. A lot of people need change. And if our job was to make people feel like shit, I feel really, not beat, I feel bad, but I feel encouraged. There is change in the air, and maybe it will be part of a wave that patients can catch as well. I don't know what else to say about that. I have little notes in front of me, by the way, only because I wanted to just change tack for a second. We wouldn't be here tonight if it weren't for one person. You know that. Our friend William Haney. We wouldn't be doing this right now if he didn't have vigils for medical marijuana patients since 2004. And William Haney, he's a force. Oh, make sure you do what you gotta do. He's a force.
Thank you, William.
Yeah. So we're doing this because of that. He had the first June 7th Memorial 2009 in Trenton at the State House, the candlelight vigil. And we lit candles from that vigil, from the candle that lit all the candles at Cheryl's memorial at the Supreme Court. So I was just saying to Kathy earlier, I wish I'd thought about it, but I would have lit that candle. I have it up in the attic still. It's a good one to use to light candles at events where everybody lights a candle, you light that candle, and they all get their light off of it. So anyway, good on you, William. Wow. That's Diane Ripatella, isn't it? That picture that you got up?
It's Diane Ripatella.
It doesn't say. Yeah, Diane Ripatella, ALS. She would go to anything going on in Trenton. And she was so happy the day the law passed. And all I can think of is she passed away not that long after that, and never saw to see the cluster shock that it became. Yeah, shout out to her widower, Joe. We could form a club. Too many, and too many more getting added.
There's little Gracie, little Cindy Mae, and then there's Marie from Pennsylvania. She died from cancer. That's Ryan's mom.
So, my audio was broken up. It sounded like earlier. It sounded like you read the third and fourth stanza. Did you do them already?
Yeah, I'm going to read them at the end. I read them in the beginning, and I'm going to read them at the end.
You have a picture up, but it has no caption.
No, this is Marie. Marie from Pennsylvania.
Yeah. All before their time. I feel like we got to get to the end zone for them somehow, you know?
Joan Ford. This is William Haney's mother, who wrote a book about epilepsy and her struggles with drop seizures during the 40s and 50s, and how she was treated horribly by people. People that should have been helping her were hurting her and being very mean to Joan.
Well, you know, I've read that, and it made me realize how hard it must have been for somebody with epilepsy then, when it still has stigma to it until, you know, somewhat recently, it seems, that she knew the suffering, but she never knew the solution. That's sad. And like, by the way, it's okay to pause. It's not that there's not anything to say. Sometimes reflection during a remembrance is, it's the purpose. There's I would want to say about Jackie Rickert, only because she had the parallel life in Wisconsin that Cheryl had here in New Jersey, only she had Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and reflexive sympathetic dystrophy. She drank morphine from a bottle, you know, the kind with a measuring thing. She had to take swigs of it to get rid of the pain. I can only imagine. And her and Cheryl formed two of the most unlikely people ever to go advocating. So when they did, it was powerful. I see a picture I don't recognize.
It's Randy Robertson from Pennsylvania. He died from cancer. He made a great...
I haven't seen pictures of some of these people. I know who they are from the Ode to Remembrance.
We'll play the video next time of Randy. Randy made a great speech at the State House. Very emotional, powerful speech that moved me and moves everybody that hears it. And it's just amazing. If you've heard it, you know what I'm talking about.
Well, it's changing. We're going to get Homegirl. And it's going to happen this year.
Paulie Connolly. She was a medical cannabis patient, and she actually had a car accident that was not her fault. But she did get some relief from medical cannabis in her life. Bill Buckman. Back on our list is Bill Buckman. We talked about him before. freedom fighter, civil rights activist, great guy. Chad had died from brain cancer, but when Chad was diagnosed with brain cancer, Chad's father killed himself, leaving Chad's mother Iris to deal with this all by herself. And Chad had a lot of problems. Was in a wheelchair. He couldn't eat. He needed a lot of help. And Iris did not know how to help him with cannabis. Even though he had a card, we got the magical butter machine, but I can't imagine if your husband dies and your son has terminal brain cancer. And I talk to Iris occasionally. She'll call me on the holidays. Every year she calls me during the holidays and talks to me. And this year she called me a few times. And this has been 4 years ago, and she still can't even talk about it.
I can't even imagine. Seriously. Don't mind me just sitting here feeling it, but we are closing out my day of reflection that I have every year. So
Jeremy was Joanne's husband. He grew cannabis, got caught growing cannabis, had his life ruined over cannabis, and his life ended. This is why Joanne is so passionate.
Well, Joanne is the real force behind Homegrow. Don't let me fool you by, doing anything I do. Homegrow is going to happen, and I don't believe it would happen without it. She has the energy that I don't, a ton more, and every bit as much reason to be passionate about it. So we'll get there.
Russ Perry was my friend from work. He died from cancer. This picture upset me today, seeing this picture again. It's Roger Barber and his family. And I miss Roger. Look at that smile. That was him all the time. He was the happiest guy ever, and he held all of that stress inside.
When he knew he was onto something. I mean, there he is sitting on the State House steps with his daughter in the foreground, like, yeah, that's right. We got something going. His wife and other daughter in the background behind him. And look at him. It's like he's living it. And for those who don't know, Roger Barber's daughter, Jenny, went to the large school, special needs school, and she's a legal patient, and she drinks her cannabis. It's a liquid form. And all they needed was for her to be able to do it at school. Oh, no. You can't do that. Schedule on license on school grounds, kids. Holy crap, no way. Yeah, well, Roger is a lawyer. He's not just a father. So he got busy. And, to make a long story fairly short.
No, make it longer. Make it longer.
Without, yeah, okay. He did it all. He took it to the state, and he kept coming back, and I'll make it moderately. I don't want to misrepresent, but it was not easy. And in the end, New Jersey, not Colorado, not California, New Jersey, under Chris Christie, who spent his whole beginning as a governor saying, we don't want to be like Colorado or California. We don't want to be like them with medical marijuana because he had a bill inherited. He had to, implement. And he blamed them. And then along comes Roger, and before you know it, Chris Christie has a distinction of being the governor of a state who became the first state in the country to allow a Schedule I substance, cannabis, on school grounds to be consumed by children who needed it. Not Colorado. Not California, Chris. New Jersey. Yeah, that was Roger. But he lost weight during all this. It put an incredible strain on him. And he died, was it a heart attack? It was kind of sudden.
Heart attack and a blood clot, I believe.
And I miss him a lot. I miss him. I miss everybody, but there's certain people that look at that smile. Yeah, and it gives me reason to hang in there. Because he did what he had to, and he got it done. And I got to tell you the truth. Something happened to me, and I knew I was dying. If we don't have home grow, it's going to be a whole different thing than if we do. How silly is that? I mean, it's everything for me. I made a deathbed promise to Cheryl, and I want to mention that really quick, only because when I found out she was dying, it turns out MS caused her to have the inability to swallow properly. So she was aspirating liquid into her lungs, and that took a quick trip to the hospital, and they said, oh, hey, don't worry, we're going to give her some help, and she can relearn to swallow. And then they called me out one day and said no. And Cheryl did not want a feeding tube, so that was it. That was the death sentence. And I had to wait for her to wake up so I could tell her she was going to die. And I did. And then I told her I was tired and that I had to fess up. I couldn't keep it up. And she didn't say, never, ever would say something like this. I didn't. She said, you have to. I explained to her. She knows she's dying. She knows I can't do this. I said I couldn't, and she said, you have to. But she just said it so sweetly. And I said, why? And she reminded me what she said when we first started out, when I said we can do it loud or we can be quiet. I could take her with medical marijuana starting in 1991. I could make her life better. But if we did it loud and told other people, we might jeopardize our success. And she didn't understand that then and said something along the lines of we wish we'd known sooner? Yes. But we shouldn't want somebody to have told us, done something for us that we're not willing to do for other people. We got to be loud as we can. That's where we started. So that's where we ended. She said, do you think there are other people that still need to know about this, that still need your help? Yeah. So the deal was the promise, the deathbed promise, and I encourage people to never, ever, ever, ever make one. The deathbed promise was that I would ask myself, what would Cheryl do? And if the answer was this, I told her, if I tell myself, if you were here, you would do it, I'll take part. Cheryl would have been all about home grow, because she was more often or as often without medicine. I couldn't provide for her. And it wasn't that she didn't. She held that against me. She was so sorry for me that I couldn't provide it for her. She knew how it hurt me. She was that kind of person. Anyway, yeah, home grow. It's everything for people, and we should not make the mistake of thinking that just because people aren't out begging for it, that they aren't within a mile of your home right now, somebody crying out in pain and somebody helpless to help them, and all they need to grow is a weed. And if that doesn't get people pissed off enough to drive it home this year, well, okay, I got nothing to follow that. Then I just keep going, I guess. Anyway.
Jay Arletto called me 2 weeks before he passed away. He's like, Lefty, I saw how you got off all those opiates, because I was on 90 milligrams of Roxy every 3 hours. That was my prescription. And I talked about it all the time, how I got off these opiates. I was very happy. And he saw my success. He says, Lefty, I want what you have. I want to get off those opiates. How do I do it? Well, I gave him the number of a medical cannabis doctor. I gave him all the information. I gave him all the hoops that he had to jump through to get the program.
Oh, Jesus.
And it was too much money, too much time, too much effort. And it was easier for Jay to go down the corner, get a dime bag of heroin, and shoot that dime bag than it was to get into the medical cannabis program. And he wound up dying right before Christmas.
Hey, listen, man. I got to say something about this because it's something that is getting by everybody that might hear this. I know you have some degree of guilt over not doing more for him, that you could have walked over and stuck a gumball of it in his mouth or something, or whatever it took. And I think there's a lot of people going to listen to this that are going to say, hey, man, that is not your cross to bear. You've done more than enough for everybody. You can't make everybody right, dude. You did everything you could.
He called me for help, and I didn't help him. I should have brought him some weed. I should have tithed him some weed. Give him some weed. Went over there, I got him stoned, but I didn't. I didn't do that. So, yeah, I do feel...
All right, well, let me postulate this then, my friend. Yes, that's a fact. But you don't have any people do nowhere near what you do. I'm just saying that, yeah, I have a couple of examples like that I do not like to relive. But I have seen you, after that, amp up what you do, and I'm not including just saying get more in people's face. I've seen you rise with what you do from being kind of a Howard Stern shock jock thing to actually getting shit done. And things get by you, man. So much shit hits the fan, you can't catch it all, So you can't beat yourself up, because other people could have helped too. And right now, there are healthy people that aren't helping patients when they know they need help. And you saying this, somebody hears that, somebody else gets to help. I got to tell you, though, there was one time when I was contacted with somebody way long ago with ALS, actually her husband. They're a Republican sort of man. But he knew somebody, a go-between. He heard about this. And I had one huge, I was a huge nugget. I'm talking about maybe like 3 grams. And I saved it so that when I started on that, I'd have time to find more. And I was just getting to it, and I got this call, and I brought it over because I knew I couldn't enjoy it. How the hell am I going to enjoy smoking that if somebody else could have had it? And what you're saying and what I'm saying, if that gets somebody to help a patient, a healthy person, realize, hey, I know somebody's a patient. Do you have enough? Come on, healthy people. Patients can't do it themselves. What I used to say when I go to festivals, I say, you see somebody in a wheelchair, somebody you know might be able to use this because it helps them, like medically. Yeah, man, you go ahead and give them that half a joint and say, take that home. They're not going to be insulted. They're going to take it home and say thank you, and then they're going to smoke it when they're home sometime and say thank you again. It's I think like I'm saying with Black Lives Matter, it's other people saying yes, and they could use help. So we need to help. I'm hoping that's the translation that's in the wind that gets people to realize there's something seriously wrong going on in an undercurrent we're not getting to. People need our help. They're sick. They're dying. And we're almost there. We just need help getting pushed across the finish line. And another thing, by the way, let's tie them together real quick. It's the in November, the cannabis in 2020, your thing.
Vote Cannabis 2020.
I'm seeing November be an incredibly pivotal time for people to finally get started. So all of this is going the same direction. And it's going to take more than sick people to get sick people across the finish line, is all I'm saying. So, sorry. I'm on my second beer. I'll fess that up, too.
Ella Bagelman died from brain cancer.
Oh, God.
She came to Trenton a bunch of times. She sat on our podcast.
Oh.
Very sad. Hattie Koshel. That's my grandma. I used to fill up a vape bag for her and test her breathing. I'm like, come on, Grandma, we're going to test your breathing today. And I'm like, come on, breathe in. And she'd breathe in, and she liked it. So then the next day I would come. She'd be like, aren't you going to test my breathing today, Edward? I'm like, sure, Graham, I'll test your breathing today. Sure, Graham, no problem. She liked it. She knew there was something in there that made her feel better. Because she was suffering. She was in pain.
I wish I'd met her.
Man, she was the best.
You called her on a podcast one time.
I used to call her all the time for sound checks.
Yeah. that was unbelievably cool. She sounded like the coolest grandma ever, really. I mean, on the podcast, if you could dig one of those up and get a listen to that, it was really good, good stuff.
Jake the Tank. Whoops, sorry. Whoops. Here we go. Jake the Tank. Jake Honig. They wrote a law after this little boy. This little boy had heart. He had soul. He had guts. He said to the doctor, I want to walk into the operating room. And that's what he did. He walked into the operating room, and he climbed up on that table all by himself, and he says, Doc, I want you to fix me. Yeah.
Yep.
That's Jake. That's Jake the Tank right there.
Very appropriate that there is Jake's Law. He was the example nobody could ignore. And God bless his parents for knowing that. For everybody.
Armando died from spine cancer. Actually, he had tailbone cancer. I've never heard in my life of anything called tailbone cancer, but that's what Armando died from. Tailbone cancer. I used to go to his shop, and we'd get high together, and I dabbed him out for the first time, second time, third time, fourth time, fifth time, seventh, 8, 9.
Yeah.
He liked when I come to visit.
Yeah.
I miss him, man. We had fun together.
How many patients do you think you've dabbed out? I remember I think you did that with Roger as well.
Yes, and, yes. A lot.
You know,
apparently a lot.
You're the patient dabber.
Leo, I got Leo. Who else did I dab out for the? Steven.
You got a list.
Just off the top of my head, I know a few. Yeah.
Me? You dabbed me into unconsciousness.
Yeah, I think I dabbed you out for the first time, too.
Yeah, and then I drove home.
Oh, wow.
Hey, it was the best drive ever. I felt like going further. Yeah. Sometimes you got to laugh in the middle of feeling like shit, right?
This is Lynn Platshorn. Do you remember what Lynn was suffering from? Was it cancer? I don't remember offhand.
I don't know. I don't know. I never met Lynn. I, of course, know her husband.
Yeah.
Her husband.
Yeah.
Robert, how many platforms are there? Oh, my God. I never... Oh, man. Yeah, I got to tell you, good for you for doing this podcast, because I'm seeing pictures of people that I've never seen pictures of before, and it's really screwing me up. So thanks. I mean, no, I mean that. I mean it. It's motivating.
This is Marine vet Sean McKay. He killed himself.
Man, that's a strong image.
Vets are still killing themselves. PTSD. This is Joyce. I'm sorry you're on our list, Joyce. This is Lori McBride. It's Mikey V's aunt.
Really?
I believe she died from cancer. I'm not sure. I believe it's cancer. I may be wrong.
How long ago was that? Do you know?
I don't know. I'm going to get backstories on all of these. A better backstory on a lot of these people that are on this list. Because I just put the names up and I read the list, but some of them I don't know the entire backstory, and I need to write them down because there's so many people. I can't keep up with everybody anymore. It's such a trail of tears and a list of sadness here. It's just horrible. It's super sad.
Unchangeable.
This is Brian. Brian with the fancy vest on.
I don't think I'm getting all the words.
Do you you sent me this picture of Brian, I believe.
That's a wedding picture.
Yeah.
You know, I always assumed that was marijuana leaves, but I don't think I actually see any.
No, it looks like it, but look on closer inspection, no, there's no cannabis there.
It looks like possibly a church or something like that. Maybe it was a trade-off. I don't know. But he was my festival buddy when I go to New York Festival, and we'd see him in other events. But he was one of the kindest, sweetest people you would ever want to meet. And he passed away about a year and a half ago. He was all about cannabis reform. I don't know that he was a patient or not, but I know how he treated patients, and I know what he did for them. And I'm not talking about in general. I'm talking about specific patients. So anyway, who's up?
Thorne Peters from Tennessee. Activist. He was the guy that would say, "I am the law, no mens rea." I love this guy. This guy had a great podcast, a great show. I loved what he had to say. He stuck to his message. It was just good stuff. I am the law. Yeah. And there's still questions about his death because he died in jail.
Really?
Yeah. Questions are unanswered. This is my brother-in-law, Frank.
I'm missing audio in there.
You can't hear me? Sorry. I'm not speaking into the phone directly. But this is my...
It's okay, just saying that to Kathy.
Yeah. This is my brother-in-law, Frank. Passed away last year.
Oh. Yeah.
And then this month, his sister died. My sister-in-law, Lorraine. She was fine a month ago and then went into the hospital. And we couldn't see her. She was in the hospital for a month. We couldn't see her. They gave her chemo on her last day, and then she never woke up from the chemo. I tithed her some CBD, and her fiance put it in her belly button for her.
Yeah.
But I wish I had been able to help Lorraine more. We didn't know she was sick. Nobody knew, and if I had known, we would have put her on the same regiment that Jeff is on. You know, just FECO, cannabis, tincture, oils, every possible way you can ingest cannabis. We're gonna try to give it to her, but it was too late, too little, too late. We couldn't help her. So my father-in-law lost two children in less than a year, his youngest children. My wife lost 3 siblings in 3 years. 3 siblings in 3 years my wife lost. Because she had a half-sister that she lost. So our family is just broken up right now over this. It's been a horrible month. We're still very affected by this. It's not going to get better anytime soon.
No, it's not.
Lorraine was awesome. I used to smoke with her. She was cool. If I smoke with you, we're cool. Because I don't smoke with a lot of people. I smoke with my friends. And if I smoke with you, yeah, you're my friend. We were cool, and I loved Lorraine. She was my sister for 15, 16 years now that we've known each other. Awesome person. Sweetheart. Here's one everybody loves. This is Terry, the president. Terry Harris.
Yeah.
We miss Terry. This was a shocker. He had diabetes. We don't know if he knew it or not. He may have known, but he couldn't afford the medicine. Even if he did know he had diabetes, he couldn't afford the medicine at that time. Because nobody could. When they found Terry, his blood sugar was like 600. They brought him into the hospital, and it shot up to like 1,500. And then his body couldn't handle it.
Yeah, he showed up.
He showed up to the podcast. He showed up for the Thanksgiving giveaways.
Yes, he did.
The clothes drives. He was always ready. He came to the Ignorance is No Excuse tours at the police stations. He wore the shirts. I mean, he was always asking me for new shirts. I mean,
and look how good he looks in a "Don't Shoot I'm White" T-shirt. That was one of your best shirts, really.
In your face. He's just. I love it. He was just like, yeah.
I mean, I miss him, but just seeing him stand there like that, it is so how you remember him exactly.
Yeah.
What I'm saying. You know?
I had to find a picture without the anonymous mask on.
Yeah, right. You know. But yeah.
This little girl here, her name is Charlotte. You know Charlotte, Jim?
I don't know. Your pictures are showing up as I'm hearing you on the phone later. Right now, I'm still looking at Terry.
Charlotte Figgy. They named a cannabis strain after Charlotte called Charlotte's Web.
Oh, Charlotte Figgy.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, hell yeah. That's who I would have thought you were talking about. But okay, there she is. Yep.
Look at her in the pot field there.
Oh, man, look at that. Oh, man. Well, she's the trailblazer that people, medical cannabis refugees who had, a lot of them had children with Dravet, epilepsy. And because of Charlotte, they had hope. And unfortunately, living in New Jersey, you'd learned a lesson that the Joannas learned. You can't just up and relocate. It's not like a vacation to Wally World and you get there and hang out and get what you need. There's a serious uprooting of the family. And when the Wilsons moved out, it was largely because they had, of course, the same thing with Vivian. And it was, no. It was a teaching moment for them. And it was a little Charlotte and what success she had that, I don't know, started a whole movement of people from all over the country with children who needed help would go to Colorado. Nice.
This is Cher Ford McCullough.
Yeah, I got to know Cher when she came, when Eddie Smith came to New Jersey. He's from Kentucky, and after he did his thing in Texas and earned his ticket here, in my mind, he couldn't travel with himself. He wasn't well. And Brian and Sarah McCullough brought him. So, I met Cheryl there. Cheryl did. And we all, I don't know, did what we had to do in New Jersey, but they came all the way here. I mean, I was able to borrow money to help them get here financially, but they came all the way here to help Cheryl. So, and then it's just so priceless seeing them all together, and just looking at her picture makes me remember that moment, how happy Cheryl was that people had come from other parts of the country to help her say to Al Gore, yeah, you tell us who these experts are, and you won't tell us. We're going to embarrass you. And he didn't tell us, so they came, and she's no longer with us. And I know Brian misses her a lot. They were a good team.
Jaybird Brennan.
Yeah, it's Michael Brennan. It's thought I put up on Facebook that it'd be nice to have pictures of patients who have passed. And he just simply sent this and said, Jaybird Brennan. So Michael Brennan says Jaybird Brennan, and I'm looking there, and I'm looking at like, yeah, that's a Brennan. That looks like Michael, So I'm assuming the brother part. But I guess that's a motivating force now for Michael. We've all got our reasons, and sometimes as you do things like he's already been doing for a long time, you get more motivated when it hits close to home, like anything else. So, Michael's a hit, and I don't know. You look at that picture of me. He looks like he's, a rapscallion or something, But to Michael, I would say sorry for your loss. Last year, I believe.
All right, Jim, I'm going to add somebody to this call. Let me see if I can do this.
You have reached the non-working number.
Okay, that didn't work. Hold on.
I'm going nowhere. It's not June 7th anymore. It's a happy day now. And I will be taking the stored version of this that I can then share and attention people to. I think you and me got to get busy putting that up and finding out all the people who have Facebook presences that we can get them notified that they might want to watch this. Because we're coming for them.
Hold on.
Hold
on. One more time. Hold on, Jim. Hold that thought. We're going to try one more time to get this call.
Hello?
Hi, you're on the air. Hold on. Hello? Okay, you're on the air.
To be Jeff's Law in honor of Jeff Oakes, who is, if people don't already know, really ridden out a terminal cancer diagnosis already further than anybody would have imagined. But he's run out of options about. And it's hard to talk in terms of someone's imminent passing. But Jeff is Jeff Oakes, Mighty Oak.
Jeff's not going anywhere. God has a plan for Jeff. He's not done with him yet. So Jeff's not going anywhere.
Listen, I remember his original goal was to be there when his daughter graduated college. And he's done that. It's, we want Jeff's law. The law, and this is non-negotiable. As long as Jeff wants it to be named Jeff's law, it will be, because Jeff has a way to have access to the amount he needs. Jeff, it isn't a matter of home growth for survival. It would certainly be an economic benefit to those who help. But he does what he does for those who it would affect. And in my mind, it's not like, oh, it would help me, so I'm doing this for me. He's not doing it for him. That's why I'm so proud of him. He does for those who don't have the benefits he does of a support system that sees that he doesn't go without. So, I'm glad to hear there's nothing on the immediate horizon.
Jim Miller, I want to introduce our good friend from Sativa Cross West, Honeybee. Hi, Honeybee.
Hey, Honeybee.
Hi, Jim.
Hey. All right. I'm so happy to hear you, because that's the signal.
That is.
That is the signal. Well, no, that's a signal that we're at the point of the fourth stanza, the one that says it all together. What is literally written in stone at the War Memorial Auditorium over a doorway.
Mm-hmm.
Written in stone, and that there's a very appropriate reason why you join us from the West Coast.
Yes.
To do this reading, and I think it's time to tell us why that is.
All right. Well, the last person on the list, should I just take over since I always do, is Michael Dillon, my son, who passed away March 5th, 2015 from epilepsy. Cannabis was the only thing that had very little side effects and was the most effective in keeping him seizure-free. But it was also expensive. So, we are on a mission to promote giving 10% tithing to someone in need. However you can do that. Because, people who need it are sick and they can't work. So give 10% to someone in need. And keep on helping one another and love one another. And fuck Corona.
Honeybee, Michael Dillon died from a drop seizure.
Yeah.
These are very deadly seizures, these drop seizures. You can't control when you fall. You can't brace yourself when you fall. You just fall and you hurt your head or you hurt something. Like Sarah Weber showed us the pictures of her drop seizures, missing teeth, her hands ripped up, 10 staples in her head, all this, brutal. And this is what Michael Dillon suffered from, drop seizures.
Mm-hmm. He did. Poor kid.
Terrible.
Having him on this list helps me to continue to focus on what needs to change in the world to help others so they don't have to go through what I go through or what other mothers go through or other parents or siblings go through. It's very, very difficult. I don't know how to deal with it very well, but I keep on trying. Thank you for having him on this list. And with that, we'll go to #TheyShallGrow.
Vote Cannabis 2020.
#JustLaw.
#LetPatientsGrowNewJersey.com. Should I start the first stanza and then you read the second one?
Yes. Thank you.
They went with songs to the battle. They were young, straight of limb, true of eye, steady in the glow. They were staunch to the end against odds uncounted. They fell with their faces to the foe.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.